All right. Okay, so let's get started. If you have any questions, feel free to just type them into the chat box and I will answer them at the end. There we go. At the end of the presentation. Hopefully we can kind of get through everything in time. All right. So happy Friday morning. Today we're going to talk about 5 cool things that you can do. The first 4 are fairly easy. The last one is a little bit more challenging to get a lot more data out of Google Analytics. Just to introduce myself here before we get started, this is a picture of me, and I am the founder of a company called bMeasure. I do analytics and kind of data-driven digital marketing for nonprofits. So I help nonprofits figure out what metrics they should measure for their communications and digital marketing campaigns. I set up tracking, build dashboards, analyze the data. So really like start to finish with a focus on helping people at these offices, figure out how to better use their data and, get more educated about the value that they can get out of it. So this particular webinar is right in my wheelhouse. Cool. And there's my contact information below. So totally feel free to shoot me an email if you have any follow-up questions. Try and be available. All right, so this is, I think, how a lot of your web developers out there feel about Google Analytics. So, you hire them to build you a new site and they include in the contract, like, hey, we also do analytics. And what they mean by doing analytics is that they put the, go to Google Analytics, create a new account, take that code, usually starts with UA dash something, 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 and they put it in WordPress or Drupal or Craft or whatever CMS you're using. And then that's the end. Maybe they put a dashboard up inside your CMS so you can see how much traffic you're getting. And, that's pretty much all they'll do. And they might even tell you that that's all there is to do. Basically, the whole point of this webinar is for me to tell you that there's a whole lot more that you can be doing. And it's not necessarily, I know Google Analytics is not the world's most user-friendly program, but a lot of it is, fairly easy if you just know what you're looking for. So let's get started. I love silly analogies, and my analogy here for this one is that Google Analytics is a bit like a geode. From the outside, if you're just putting your tracking code on your site, it seems very functional and kind of boring, kind of like a rock. It's just okay. It's there when you need to pull your page view numbers at the end of the month, but that's about it. It's only when you get down inside and you crack it open, you learn more about it, that you see the real cool, interesting part of analytics and what all the stuff you can do with the data. So we're gonna drill into the cool crystally part of the geode here. All right, so as I've been alluding to, there's kind of 2 different sides to Google Analytics. I like to think of it as out of the box. So this is what happens when your web developer, this is the information you get when your web developer takes your tracking code and sticks it in the CMS. This is everything that comes out of the box at Google Analytics. Then over here in the purple column, this is what you get with some additional setup. So unfortunately, this takes a little bit of extra work, but in most cases, it's not that much work. There's actually, there's a lot more you can do with it, but I tried to narrow it down for this presentation to things that you guys could viably do this afternoon if you wanted to. All right, so out of the box is Google Analytics tracks every page view. So basically it tracks when a page on your site loads, and it tracks only this, and it tracks every single one. So the 2 drawbacks with this is that it will track bot traffic. It'll track you if you and your coworkers spend a lot of time on the website. It's going to be tracking all that usage too. And it's also going to be tracking all those spammers out there who are just crawling the sites. It also, only tracks page views, so it's not tracking any actions. This definitely is something that's harder. These actions are harder to set up, but kind of, worth thinking about and maybe spending some more time learning this. I know websites now, they're not just like, oh, load this page, read this content, load this page, read this content. You're also watching videos and you're filling out forms and you're interacting with different dashboard elements. And all of this action tracking needs to be set up separately. Also, out of the box, this is another fairly easy thing to fix that we're going to talk about today, is that Google Analytics will track, referrals, search traffic, but it often will miss a lot of traffic that's coming from email and perhaps social campaigns. We'll go over how to get that working correctly. It's not going to miss those views of your site, but it's going to attribute them to the wrong source. Out of the box, Google Analytics gives you a lot of cool information about what types of devices and browsers and where people are located. But just with a couple of clicks, you can get information on what demographics your users belong to and what they're searching for on your website. And then the last thing, the one that I mentioned that was more difficult, is when you first set up your site, you don't do anything with your analytics, you can always look at like how engaged are your users by looking at how long they stay on your site or how many pages they visit. That's always an option for you. But eventually you want to set up something Google Analytics calls goals. And this looks at, out of those things that are really goals or conversion points for our site, like it might be a donation or an email sign up or downloading, some research that we've conducted. You can see how many people are actually doing that versus just coming to your site. So that's very important. All right, so here's the agenda, which is pretty much what I just talked about. So first off, I'm going to give you some pointers on how you can block misleading traffic to your website. Basically, I didn't want this presentation to turn into like, let's go into Google Analytics and click here and then click here. So I have some screenshots of where to find everything, and then you can kind of walk through it in the platform yourself. So I'm putting this presentation up in my resources section. There's a link at the end, but it's bmeasure.com/resources. And then you can go to, you can find those slides and kind of follow those directions. So we don't go over it today because I don't want this webinar to be 5 years long. All right, so number 2 is where to go to turn on some extra data. 3 is a cool, easy feature that you can use to kind of analyze your different user types to see how people who are, say, on mobile are different than those on laptop. Number 4 is that thing I talked about where you want to make sure that you're tracking all of your marketing. And number 5 is a bit of an overview for how you can set up additional tracking for actions and goals. All right, let's get this off. Number 1, we're going to talk about blocking unwanted traffic. So right here, this is when you go into Google Analytics initially, it's going to default to be in this home menu. So this first section we're going to talk about is here under admin, right? It's the little Google gear shift. Then when you load up your admin section, you're going to get this view, which is account, property, and view. Your account here is kind of your highest level. This is often your entire organization. Your property is going to be your various websites, or if you have an app, you can put them under property. So if you have, say, 2 websites, you have one for some sort of special standalone program that you run, and then you also have maybe like a website that's more generally about your organization. Those would be one account and 2 properties. And then your views are going to go under your properties. So this is actually a nesting structure, even though they look parallel here. All right. So this little lovely diagram illustrates that, right? So you have your organization with just one account. You don't want to create a whole bunch of different accounts within your office. And then, for example, here I have an app and a website. And then within your website, you can create more detailed views. Honestly, this used to be a very popular way to run Google Analytics was creating a whole bunch of different views for different traffic sources. You might do one that was search traffic and one that was referral traffic. We'll get into that later. But there's some new features in Google Analytics that make that not needed anymore. So I recommend creating at least 2 views. One is your main one that you use to pull out your data, and one is unfiltered. And we're going to talk about why in a second. This is why. There is no, in this admin section here, there might be some exceptions, but I can't think of them offhand. I want to say that there is no time machine in your admin section. So whatever you do here, in this particular case, we're going to talk about how you can filter out bot traffic and your internal traffic. But if you accidentally make a mistake and say, instead of just filtering out, your office, you filter out your entire city, you won't be able to go back and get that data. If you let that run for a month, you will be missing a month of your city's data. So you want to be very careful about whatever you do here. That's why I recommend setting up, I usually call it main view and unfiltered view. That way, if you put some filters, you do some stuff to your main view and it doesn't work quite the way you want, you always have your backup. That's your unfiltered view. Actually, I have a slide to that. So I like to do main, test, and unfiltered. That way you have your main is where you're getting your data that you probably report, out to your organization. Unfiltered is your backup, and test is where you can try out new things. All right, so here's where you can find these different options in your Google Analytics. So I recommend clicking to, it's just a checkbox pretty much to block known spam bots. So this is, spammers, programs that are crawling the internet, they will count as hits to your website. Google says it can be up to maybe 20 or 25% of your web traffic. That's why I recommend this test view, because you might want to see how it's going to affect your traffic numbers before you turn this on, just so you can give your boss or your clients a heads up, okay? Down here in this filter section, it will walk you through here, but you can block your specific IP address from your Google Analytics account, or if you work in a larger organization, you can block everybody on your ISP. That might be easier if you're at a whole university, something along those lines. You might even want to put them in their own view so you can keep the data. Anyway, you might have to think that through. That's a little bit more of a complicated case. And then right here in this tracking info section, just real quickly, you can block referring websites. So I see a lot of nonprofits that have their CRM as a big traffic source on their website. I recommend going in there and checking and adding that so you're not counting referrals from that site, because oftentimes people are starting to sign up for something, getting taken off to the CRM, and then sent back again, and that's being counted as 2 separate visits. So that's misleading. Cool. So this is one of those slides that you can download from my website so that you can find this later, because honestly, I always forget where these different items are. So I think this is pretty helpful. Cool. All right, that brings us to number 2. If you have any questions about the admin section, just feel free to chat me, and if we get through this in time, we can get to them at the end. All right, so number 2 is turn on your extra data. This is the most straightforward section of this presentation, so this is pretty easy. If you're going to do anything today, I would recommend doing this. So Google Analytics gives you, like I said, information about what devices people are using, what browsers they're using, just right out of the box, which can be very helpful, especially if you're trying to develop a new website and you want to know the technical side of it. But you can easily enough get demographic information. This is not turned on automatically because some places might not have their privacy policy up to date. So if you work in a place where you have a very strong legal department, you probably want to review it with them first before you turn this on. But to turn it on, it pretty much takes like 2 clicks of a button, and then Google starts pulling in data from its ad network. So when you surf the internet and Google's displaying ads to you, if you have a Gmail account, you've given Google some information about yourself. Maybe your birthday, whether you're male or female. And Google, when you visit other sites, kind of knows who you are, and they can send this data to Google Analytics. So people always ask me how reliable I think this is. I do not think it's 100% reliable. I think some of this is guessing on Google's part. And as you can see here, it's 63% of total users, so they don't have data on everybody. However, I have been sharing the story that I just turned 35, and the other week it was like a few days after my birthday, I was doing a presentation and I was showing them this link down here, which is where you can see what data Google has about you. And I was like very annoyed to find that Google had already moved me to this 35 to 44 age block, even though my birthday was just like 3 days before. So if you have good, I think, it is fairly reliable, I think enough to make decisions about what types of people are visiting your site. Cool. All right. So the other type of data I recommend getting is your search data. So on my website and most people's websites, they have a search this site box. There's a little, in the next slide, I'll show you where to find this in the back end. But all you have to do is enter your search query parameters. So it's going to be like a character or 2 from your URL into this box, and then Google will start tracking what people are searching for on your site. So it's really cool because you can see like, kind of 2 things. What content people are interested in, and then also is certain content like, hard to find on your site that people are repeatedly searching in here when they should be able to just get to it from the navigation. So kind of, you guys know your organizations, and so you could kind of make that decision by seeing that data. You can also link your search engine. So this is on-site search over here. On the right is search engine searches. You can link this to Google Analytics. And it will just pull in your search engine data. It's nice so that it will be all in one place. It's pulling from another program called Google Search Console, which I also recommend you sign up for. All right, here's the quick slide on where to find all of these settings. Pretty self-explanatory. All right, next point is number 3. This is how you can use another feature in Google Analytics to analyze your users. All right, so this is my apology. I don't think I said this, but I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, and everyone is very into Thomas Jefferson here. So sorry, Thomas. Not all web traffic is created equal. You can use this feature to find, okay, out of all of our different traffic sources and our different devices and our different types of users, some of them are going to be more engaged with our site and more likely to convert than others. And so how you find this is by creating pretty much a filter, or a Brita filter in this case. We have, in this example, though honestly, you can do this with any data point that's in Google Analytics. I have all of the different types of traffic, marketing traffic that's coming to the site. And like, that's cool, but I really want to look at just my social traffic. I want to know what time of day these people are coming. I want to know what types of content they're more likely to look at. I want to know whether they're more likely to be mobile users or desktop users. So I can create a filter that's just looking at them, right? And this is a quick example of just the sort of analysis that you can do with this feature. In this case, I was looking at, our social traffic that was coming to the site based on what the marketing team was putting out there versus social traffic that was coming to the site based on just people finding our content on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and where else. And then also the email that our marketing team was putting out. So, out of all of these different traffic sources and types of traffic, which of them we're spending the most time on the site, which I think can be a good indication with how involved they are with the site and with your content, maybe where you should focus your marketing energy. And you can see here very clearly that the email people were spending more than twice the amount of time on the site as the social people, and our marketing team, people coming from the marketing stuff, spending more time than people just randomly finding it. So this says to me that email is a good outlet, at least in just this vacuum, and that if marketing has extra time, maybe they should put it into email rather than social media stuff. So this helps you kind of drill into this and figure out some of these business decisions. So, okay, so where to find this? This is, I've had people tell me they've been using Google Analytics for years and they've never found this feature. So it's really easy. It's just kind of hidden. Oops. It's right here. You just click this add segment and a bunch of choices will drop down. Google is nice because they pre-populate this for you. So I have a bunch of custom ones that I've created based on different websites that I've worked on. But right out of the box, there will be choices like this, social traffic versus referral traffic versus paid traffic. It'll give you options like, okay, you can choose if you want to look at just mobile people, just tablet people, just desktop people. It'll go you some of those basic things right away. You can also go in and build custom ones if you want to look at stuff like, I only want to look at users who are from the state of California, and I also want to look only at people who are, men or in the ages of 25 to 45, say. So it's very flexible. Pretty much any data point that's in the reports here, you can use to build a filter. All right, number 4, I'm going to solve the direct traffic problem. This is another one of the big problems that I see in Google Analytics that is fairly easy to fix, though unfortunately it can be a bit time consuming. All right, so these are an example of a good mysteries. I love a good mystery, especially a TV program. And so I know it's often fun when you don't know what's going on and you're trying to guess what's happening. Unfortunately, this direct traffic in Google Analytics is a bad mystery. So this isn't a case of it's going to be solved at the end. This is a case of, oh, I don't know what's happening here, and therefore my data is unreliable and I can't really make good decisions about my website and my marketing. So direct traffic is what happens when traditionally when people type your URL into the browser bar, or they use a bookmark to get to your site. It's when Google doesn't have any information about where your users are coming from. However, people think, oh, direct traffic, that's awesome. People know my name and are coming directly to my site. In fact, now, because we have so many different ways to get to your site, that actually direct traffic could be email traffic, it could be social traffic, a lot of people sharing things through text or email. So you want to try and eliminate direct traffic whenever possible. Like you can see in this example here, I believe this is from a company that does have an email newsletter, except none of this traffic is showing up as email. See, it's paid search, organic search, display. It's because the email newsletter is not tracking correctly and it's all getting lumped into direct. So the person who's running the email newsletter has no idea what's happening with that traffic that they're driving. Okay, the easy way to solve this, and it's totally easy, it's just you have to stay on top of it is by creating these, it's called UTM campaign codes. They're named after this UTM. It's basically data that you append to the end of a link, and it gets pushed into Google Analytics so that you get information about where these people are coming from. It's very flexible, and you need to decide what data you put in each of these parameters. So these are my recommendations, that the source should be the specific place. So it should be like the name of your newsletter or the name of the social media outlet. The medium is going to be your general type of traffic, in this case, email. And then your campaign is kind of your vague one. If you have a general marketing initiative or promotional initiative, like perhaps the holidays, or I don't know, you can fill anything in there, honestly. So, but I think it's worth thinking about, like, how do we want to bracket our different promotions together? All right. So this is from the source and medium report in Google Analytics. If you're familiar with it, you can find it here under acquisition. And then your traffic will start showing up in there. Instead of direct, it will have those parameters. See, I put source equals B update my newsletter, medium equals email. It will start showing up in there instead. So now I know that these 30 people, they're from my newsletter instead of just being from this mysterious direct bucket. All right, and then that brings us to the last point, number 5, which is, are users doing the right stuff on the website? So we talked a lot about how to find, how to filter out so you're tracking the right users, how to get information about all of your traffic sources, how to get extra data about your users. Like, that's all cool to know how many people are coming to your site and how they're getting there. But the main thing we want to know ultimately is, like, are they doing what I want them to do on the website? So that can be anything, honestly, from maybe reading all of your content, to downloading research, to signing a petition, to subscribing for a newsletter. Everybody has different things that they want people to do on their site. This is just, for example, booking an appointment. That was a goal of a client that I had recently, and they were curious. Out of all of the different ways that we're promoting our website, it was through display, so like visual advertising, a social media account, newsletters, search traffic. We can see how all these people are coming to the site, but we don't really know what they're doing on there and which of these traffic sources are, like, driving people to book stuff. All right, so like I just said, the hard thing about goals here is, or conversions, they're kind of one and the same, is that they're different for every site. So unfortunately, I can't give you like hard and fast, easy rule to follow on this webinar, because you're going to need first to think about what is important to your site and your organization, and then you need to figure out how you're going to track it. So I'm going to show you one way that's the easiest way. So if this is possible, you want to go with this. I just covered this. So, like, one other thing that makes goals difficult to set up in Google Analytics is, first, we just already talked about how they're different for every website. But the second reason is that they are most often not page views. So if you think way back to the beginning of the webinar, I was talking about how page views is what Google Analytics tracks right out of the box. So, every time a page loads, it tracks your page view, and it doesn't tell you information about other things like what actions people are doing. And if you look here at these different goals here, a lot of these are clicking on these buttons. Those are actions, and that's not something that Google Analytics tracks automatically. That's going to be something that you will have to set up yourself. And I do have some links on how you can find more information on that in the last slide. But for a quick example, and if this is how your site's set up, then this is definitely something you can do today. So on my newsletter, if you subscribe, it takes you to this page that says bemeasure.com, thanks for subscribing. Okay. And I can tell Google Analytics, hey, Google, whenever somebody visits this page, count them as a subscription to my website. And count them as a subscription to my website. And I go into this section in the admin and I click on goals, and I tell the goals section, hey, please count a view to this page as a goal. And the one caveat here, is that just like everything else in the admin section that we talked about, is that the goals do not have a time machine. So definitely think ahead of time. I always encourage experimentation, except in this particular situation. The goals, if you create one, you cannot delete it. You just need to edit it, and then it'll change it going forward. So you're kind of always stuck with it in a way. So you want to think about ahead of time, what are going to be, at least your 2 or 3 top goals for your site, and then set up that tracking. All right, and then I mentioned that we have a lot of times your goals on your site are not a view of a page. They're going to be in action. So this is my quick little timeline about how you can get that up and running. It is, however, a bit complicated, and it involves using another program called Google Tag Manager, which you have to install separately. And we're not going to cover that today, but these are some links to the Google documentation that will help you get started if you want to go that direction. However, you're also more than welcome to reach out to me. This is largely what I do for clients, is get this up and running for them. All right, so that's my last slide. If you're interested in getting some of these set up on your own site, I have this presentation uploaded to my website. It's bemeasure.com/resources. You can, I think you have to enter your email address. But all I will do is probably email you about the next webinar, or if there's something else coming up. Looks like we got a question. Oh, and yes, to Catherine, that I will be recording this. I am recording this right now. In fact, that was the reason for the encore, was that the sound on my other one wasn't very good. So I will post this up on the website and maybe send it out by email next week. So yes, it will. Okay, great, thanks. Cool. We have like 3 minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can kind of jump off and get started with the day. Cool. All right. Well, if you think of anything that you're interested in, feel free to email me. It's emily@bemeasure.com. And I we'll be speaking about AdWords grants coming soon, so I'm going to turn that also into a webinar, so look out for that one in the next couple of weeks, probably in late April. Great. Well, thanks so much, and you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend.